Okay, guys, let's begin. Our presentation is called The Token. It's a presentation covering the brutal murders of Black and Hispanic transgender women. Okay. Um, this is a quick breakdown of what we're going to go over. We're going to talk about some of the key words that we're going to use throughout the presentation. We're also going to cover the differences between drag queens and transgenders. And we're going to also cover the Hollywood stars that use the LGBTQ platform to further their careers. And lastly, but not least, we'll go over the statistics of transgender women of color's deaths. Okay, a few key words. So, a drag queen is a male that wears women's makeup and clothes and likes to perform in theater arts. So, that's just exactly what that says. Transgender woman is a person that was born with male body parts but identifies or lives as a woman. And TWOC is a transgender woman of color. For this presentation, we're going to talk about Black, Hispanic, Asian, pretty much any non-white transgender woman of color. And most importantly, we're going to discuss what a token is. And a token is a person of a specific ethnicity that lives, that works, and has friends of a different ethnicity. Okay, so you have one Black person that'll have a lot of white friends, or vice versa. They'll be called the token. For the purposes of this presentation, we're going to be talking about the drag queens and the transgenders that occupy the space of heterosexual people, straight people. Okay. Also, socioeconomic status, SES. Basically, it's the same. We're going to go by your zip code and your family history. So if you were born, from a bloodline of, Barack Obama, you have, presidential blood, and your zip code is different and things of this nature. And lastly, not lastly, but we're going to discuss the acronym LGBTQIA, and Q being queer, I being intersex, and A being allies. And then if I put MD, that's my definition. I'm 36 years old, so I've lived this life a long time. And so I've picked up a lot of stuff along the way. And so certain things is how I interpret it. All right. So we're going to focus on the differences between transgender women and drag queens, because they are not the same. All right. So transgender people, or women for this presentation, they have what's called gender dysphoria. All right. It's just a constant feeling of frustration because your body does not match the gender that you identify as. So if you were born with male body parts and you feel like you're a woman, you're going to have a persistent and a constant frustration with the way that your body looks, because it does not match who you are and who you believe you are as well. Some transgender people would love to have reassignment surgery. It's not universal. Some transgender people, they are fine with not having the sexual reassignment surgery. However, some do want to take hormones so that they'll offer some relief when they look in the mirror, and when they're out interacting, with the public. And so it just allows them, the hormones just allow them the ability to, to pass, okay? So drag queens, just like it reads, are men that dress up as women. They do not have gender dysphoria. They know that they're men, and they wear makeup and dresses, and they're okay with that. They do not consider sexual reassignment surgery, again, because they do not have gender dysphoria. And sometimes drag queens are gay males, and sometimes they're straight males. Okay, there's no universal code for that. So some more differences: transgender women, they wear makeup sometimes. They take hormones, as I previously mentioned, to soften their male appearances. For a rounder face, a softer, a booty or their breasts, and soften the muscles in their legs and their arms. And they do a lot of voice training. Some transgender women wear feminine clothing, like long dresses and tank tops and heels. It's not an exaggerated state of dress. It's just, feminine clothing. Some wear fake nails. They use nail polish as well as foot polish. And, they shave, Drag queens, okay, they always wear exaggerated makeup like clowns, right? They like clowns in the theater when they dress up. They do absolutely nothing to soften their male appearance, okay? They don't shave. They want you to know that they're a man dressed in women's clothing. They do this for fun. Also, they wear feminine costume props, like overly exaggerated, like with fake breasts and big butts. They wherever they find those things that they use that for the specific purposes of performing, like they're in a theater, okay? And they also understand that they're putting on a show. They understand this is not real life. I'm a man, so forth and so on. All right. These are very important distinctions. All right. Let's move on. All right. So to get specific, we'll talk about Hollywood. Let's just use some examples. So transgender women would be Caitlyn Jenner. Right, Caitlyn came out. She had the entire sexual reassignment surgery. She's been a transgender, living as a transgender woman her entire life. She came out publicly in 2015 and made that switch. Laverne Cox, she's a transgender woman as well. And so, drag queens. RuPaul is a drag queen. He's not transgender. And so is Billy Porter. Okay. For the next couple of slides, we're going to focus on RuPaul because he's been around the longest, and previous to Caitlyn Jenner, he was associated with being trans or queer, so to speak. All right. Right. So, drag queen RuPaul, transgender Caitlyn, transgender Laverne Cox. Okay. Before we begin, I want to give you a little bit of history of how drag queens came to be. All right. So, back in the day when Prohibition was enacted from 1920 to 1933, gay men and queer men, which are just men who like to dress up, found comfort in speakeasies. And speakeasies, as we, if you're not familiar with them, during the Prohibition, there would be like these little underground clubs where they would serve you alcohol, which was forbidden, and they'll play music or put on shows and things of this nature. And so drag queens were really taking advantage of this scene back in the early 1930s. And in 1966, okay, they repealed Prohibition. You can start drinking again. But the world was still not familiar and as accepting of queer people as they are today. And so what they did was they stayed at the speakeasies. So there was a crime mob family called the Genovese family, right? and they bought a bar called Stonewall, and they bought that bar specifically for the purposes of drag queens, so they can go there and perform, not be bothered by the cops, have a good time. Unfortunately, cops continue to harass them, and you know, in 69, we had the Stonewall riots, which became famous as the whole gays not taking any shit sort of thing. And it's important to mention this because previous to Caitlyn Jenner and Laverne Cox, there was RuPaul. Okay. And RuPaul found a way to command respect for drag queens, okay, back in the the early 80s and late 90s, okay. All right, hold on, we don't want to go there just yet. All right. So, RuPaul, he came out. He was doing a lot of the black drag performances. But also, it's important that I mention too. I do want to stop and go back that in the early 70s, that's when the drag ball culture started in the black community. Okay. That distinction is important because gay black men that didn't have the terms for transgender and things of this nature. Hold on. I need to go back because I don't want to distract. Let's keep it right here. All right. So yeah, the gay black ball culture started, and pretty much they used to hang out in uptown Manhattan, and they would go to neighborhoods like Harlem and Washington Heights, and just perform. And this was like a haven for black people whose families weren't that accepting, that kicked them out, had substance abuse problems, but just really wasn't trying to accept the lifestyle. And these black gay men that started on the ball scene, most of them were from broken homes. And so RuPaul was not that different. His parents got divorced. But at the age of 15, RuPaul moved to Atlanta. Okay? And he went to Atlanta. He studied theater arts. And really nothing wasn't happening too much for him until he performed. He was an extra in 1989 in the B-52. It's called the Love Shack. Now, some of my older audience will know exactly what I mean when I say that. The Love Shack is a huge hit. It made all the billboards, it charted internationally, as number one. And so this is where RuPaul made his big break, okay? And that's important because when RuPaul was that extra, he became catapulted as the token, all right? And he was a token gay man in Hollywood, the token queer, so to speak, all right? And from 1989, his career just took off. He started in the 1990s, okay? Now, in the 1990s, we didn't have, prior to 1991, okay? There was no internet. There was no Facebook, no YouTube, no nothing. Just TV. And so when one person was chosen to represent, the mass of people. They were really superstars. And so RuPaul, he went to the UK, right, in the 1990s, and he did a show, and the show talked about how crazy that the American TV was in New York. Okay, so RuPaul basically represented the entire United States of America in the 1989, but he was the queer version, the token. Okay, and from there, he had his career catapulted. He came back in '93. He broke into the music industry with his Supermodel You Better Work video. In 1994, he got with MAC Cosmetics and MAC AIDS. And this is when the AIDS epidemic was running rampant in the gay male community. But let's stay focused. RuPaul was the token. Okay? And so in 1994, the RuPaul show started. All right? And, that's the oversaturation of the drag and all that. And in 1995, RuPaul did a documentary called Letting It All Hang Out. And again, I'm focusing on RuPaul specifically in the 90s because he was the token that set the tone. Most people did not even know that RuPaul is not transgender. He is a drag queen and always has been a drag queen. Okay? In 1995, he had an autobiography called Letting It All Hang Out. And he made a statement. He says, you can call me he, she, you can call me Regis or Kathy Lee, just as long as you call me. Okay? And the reason why he was able to make that statement in 1995 was because we didn't have the terminology for, transgenders and pronouns, or even the respect as a country for our LGBTQ members. All right? But RuPaul, it didn't matter to him. You can just, as long as you call him and you give him some money, he was all right with that. Okay? And, all right. Let's move on. All right. So, I want to talk about being an actual token and what that provides to you. Okay? So, again, a token is somebody of a specific ethnicity that, lives or works around people with other different ethnicities or even sexualities. That's what I should have put, actually. But let's continue. So, token advantage 1, you win by default. All right? So basically, in an attempt to be seen as inclusive, right? Certain slots in the Hollywood and the music industry are reserved for the others, right? That's anyone who's not white or straight, okay? There's no real competition because our community is severely underrepresented, okay? Examples, RuPaul's gay black celebrity speaking on behalf of America while it's working in the UK in the 90s, like I said. Laverne Cox was the first black transgender woman who made the cover of Time magazine solo. She didn't do anything significant for the community besides identifying as a transgender woman, but there was nobody else there. So, also Laverne Cox is the only black transgender woman to have a wax sculpture in the Madame Tussauds Museum. That's huge, because those wax sculptures are normally meant for, political figures, historical figures, figures that, put in work, okay? But if you're a token, you sort of win by default. Because if you're the first of anything, you're going to be able to take advantage of that, right? And so, but I want to slow down and let's continue about some of the advantages of being a token, okay? Okay, let's see. Let's bring it down. All right. The second advantage of being a token is, who's gonna check you, okay? Being a token provides you with a golden ticket, which allows your words and stories to go unchallenged most times. And because you represent a specific ethnicity or sexuality, people from a different ethnicity or sexuality will not ask too many questions about your story as not to appear rude or racist or homophobic, right? So when RuPaul made that statement, way back in 1995, you can call me he, she, Miss Kathleen, as long as you call me. Most people would be like, what do you mean by that? And would probe a little bit deeper and to have you give an explanation. But because of the rules and because people don't want to appear to be rude, they just take the token at their word. The next quote is from an interview that RuPaul did with The Guardian last year, which got him pretty in some hot water. And this is where we'll connect everything. All right. So, pinning him down on precisely what all of this means can be tricky. In part because I think he doesn't want to offend anyone by explicitly acknowledging the contradiction between his playfully elastic sensibility and the militant earnestness of the transgender movement. All right. So, let's get into why that's important. So let me see. That's just more stuff about Laverne Cox. Some more advantages of not being checked, being a token. These are quotes from his interview with The Guardian. We're going to pull it up right here, but I also have that cited on my reference page, so you can go back and you can look at that if you want to read the full article. I suggest you do. All right. Again, the reason I'm focusing on RuPaul now is because RuPaul has been the most visible figure in the entire world, that has to do with being queer or even close to trans. And previous to Caitlyn Jenner coming out in 2015, RuPaul was not as strong in the differences. He rode the ambiguity line, which means that he just, whatever, it doesn't matter, sort of thing, sort of attitude, which, perpetuates in Hollywood, which gives the people on the streets absolutely no representation. I'm gonna bring that back so it can make more sense, but let me go on. All right, so RuPaul in an interview, he says, people have always been threatened by me as an African American man because of the inherent black rage that all black people have in our culture. The underlying black rage because of what happened to us in this country. It is always there. It's a glaring issue that's saying, first of all, let's talk about the black rage, right? And so he just talks about it and he says, look, I'm fun. I can have a sense of humor about life because I'm in drag. I acknowledge black rage, but we're going to have some fun. So then people are like, okay, so we can laugh together. We don't have to address the black rage. This is in 2018, okay? All right. This statement right here, I think it woke a lot of transgender people up, and then they realized that RuPaul is really not an ally, and that's just as plain as I could put it. RuPaul is a man who has been living within his male privilege, which just means that because he's a man, he's been able to occupy spaces, right, dominated by men, which were meant for women, okay? This goes back to the history of drag and how it first started, when women couldn't be in theaters or plays, males had to play their parts. And that's just a continuation of that. And because he was a black gay man, he just sort of rolled that way between gay and trans, but never making the distinction until Caitlyn Jenner came out and until that pressure really, really hit him. And so he makes a statement, drag loses its sense of danger and its sense of irony once it's not men doing it. Because at its core, it's a social statement and a big F you to a male-dominated culture. So for men to do it, it's really punk rock, right? Because it's a real rejection of masculinity, okay? Totally different than, you know, call me he, call me she, it don't matter, just call me, you know? And then he continues, he says, so how can a transgender woman be a drag queen? It's an interesting idea. Then he references a Peppermint, somebody who was on his show before, but pretty much saying that she hadn't really transitioned. So the Guardian guy asked him, he says, well, would you accept a contestant who did transition? And then RuPaul hesitates and says, probably not. That's important. It's important because he made this statement in 2018. But his entire mindset, the entire time, okay, from 1989 to almost 2020, okay, because he got banked now. RuPaul done made so much money walking on the lines and playing the lines of ambiguity. Yeah, I'm this, I'm that, ha ha ha. And when he gets charged up about it, right, when people ask him, well, do you really respect transgenders, so to speak? And basically he's saying, no, fuck them. I don't care about them. Excuse me. Or forget them, and this is what that is. Is my interpretation, and I interpret it that way because trans women have been getting killed, brutally killed, since the 80s, right? But for some odd reason, around 2013 and 2014, the spike has went tremendously up and have not stopped since. Okay? And so it's important to point him out because he rode the line for so long. His platform is so big. It's RuPaul and it's Caitlyn Jenner. Okay? And Caitlyn Jenner changed the game as far as pronouns and how we speak about transgender and how we address them. Okay? And that could be because of the work that she put in previous to coming out, being an Olympic athlete and Wheaties and all that. But the point is, there was no going back. After, on the record, we have a fully transitioned transgender woman in the public And so now you can't just say, call me he, call me she, Kathy Lee, whatever. Now his true intentions are starting to permeate, come out. You can start to see that a lot more. And it could be because, I don't know why. But what I do know is that RuPaul has never spoken sternly about these murders of these black and these Hispanic transgender women, because he don't care, right? Because he's a man that does drag, not a trans. I need y'all to understand that. That's important. He does not. The money's good, okay? Because there was a real big controversy after this Guardian interview came out, because people could see his true intention. And so it just goes back to, well, who's gonna check me? And when the man made the statement, well, it's sort of hard to, he says, pinning him down on precisely what he means can be tricky. No, it's not tricky. He's saying what it is he's been feeling. The point is, with this generation and with the internet, with social media, the pressure is on. And you can't just take people's money and take their adoration and don't do right by them. Okay? He rode that line. And so, at any particular point in time, RuPaul could have said, hey, listen, there's all of these transgender women getting murdered. We need to stop and come together and figure this thing out. Okay? He did not do that. Has not done that. Okay? And so that is my issue. That's my issue with RuPaul. My issue with Laverne Cox is simply her silence. Okay? She, of course, we all know her from the Orange is the New Black from Netflix, right? But this woman has been on the cover of Time magazine solo. That's huge. Like, that is huge. She also had a wax museum. All right. Now, Laverne Cox had a decent upbringing. I got the Time interview on my reference. You go back, you can read that, and all her examples. I don't want to, belittle anybody's experiences, but they're light, okay, compared to what real black, Hispanic, transgender women of color go through. Multiple suicide attempts, just disregarded by their parents, disregarded by society. You know what I'm saying? So they have to form houses and balls and things of this nature. But this woman has been able to, walk in that space. But telling your story is fine. Okay? But you gotta do the work. Alright? And I've only seen her mentioned on like tweets or whatever her social media platforms is, condolences and things of this nature. But you have work to do. You have work to do when black transgender women are getting shot to death, stomped to death, beat to death on the street, strangled. Like they can, man. Do you know how much power and anger it takes to strangle somebody to death? Like, point is, RuPaul walked the line until he couldn't walk that mug no more. No, Laverne Cox came out. Her story worked for a while, and that's great. and she got platformed into all the, the right places. But her silence is deafening. Because it's silence without action. Okay? Now, Caitlyn changed the game as far as, again, how anybody uses pronouns. You know when I say they're too big to fail? That's Caitlyn. So, at any particular point in time, Caitlyn could give a Laverne, and they could, start a organization to address the disgusting and monstrous murders. And again, I have all of those down there, and so that's why I'm singling them out. But also, Caitlyn, she she got with MAC Cosmetics too. That seems to be one of the go-tos. You get with MAC, and they donate their proceeds from her lipstick to their AIDS fund. But I put Billy Porter up here because in this previous slide right there, because he's trying to take over and walk the same walk as Laverne Cox. I mean, RuPaul. And that is not okay. There's no more room for them, is what I'm saying. It's just not. It's just not. If you love the community, and it's just not. RuPaul got to go, and Billy Porter got to sit down somewhere, because he's getting all kinds of roles. They want to be fabulous, and they want to dress up, and they want to do these things, but you don't want to live like a woman. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to do all of that. And so they have to be X'd out. And the pressure needs to be applied to Laverne Cox and to Caitlyn Jenner, because they got the biggest platforms. The biggest platforms. At any particular time. And Caitlyn's connected to the Kardashians. So you're everywhere. All you need to do is make a statement. Okay? Together. A powerful statement. And draw the line so that white people can understand that it's okay to charge somebody up, which means question them and call them out on their mess if they're not doing the work. Okay? It's okay. Nobody's gonna be mad. But they don't. But that was the point. So now I want to talk about a little bit of statistics, right? And this is you can probably see this, but look. All right. So I got these statistics straight off of the HRC website, which is the Human Rights Campaign. This stuff was so bad. They had to create a whole other subsection for it, because these transgender women are getting murdered. Look at this. 82% of these transgender murders are transgender women of color. Black, Hispanic, Asian, non-white. 82%. And only 18% is white. Alright? And these are all the statistics they have collected since 2015. And of the murders, 55% of them has been in the South. Okay, the southern region. The other 45 has been, other places. But that's over half. I don't understand how this is not on everybody's front page news, how everybody's not slamming and hashtagging and getting behind this stuff. It's ridiculous. 55%. Let's see, we got some more. This is the most disparaging one, in my opinion, because 64% of them were under the age of 35, yo. Did not even get a chance to live. That's just disgusting. I don't even understand why. I don't understand it. But yeah, man, 64% under the age of 30, babies just murdered, shot to death, didn't even have a chance to live life. And I can almost guarantee you they didn't have no support, man. No support from their families, no support from Hollywood, you know what I'm saying? And it's funny because, you know all of them watch RuPaul's Drag Race, right? You have to know that. And if you don't know that, they do. You know, a lot of them do that because, I mean, who doesn't want to be a beautiful woman? I mean, we're everything. You know, and then when you talk about being a beautiful black woman, well, that's just, you're not going to get no better than that. And that just is what it is. And it just is what it is. But, yeah, man, you know, no representation. Just taking their money, playing with their head, you know. That's bullshit. It's crazy. This shit is sad, man. It's just ridiculous. This is just some more. All right, so let's get into the actual statistics and when they start. When they start reporting on this epidemic. All right, for those of you who don't know, in 1991, that's when the public was given access to the World Wide Web, the internet, so to speak, right? In 1991, you feel me? And with the internet and with the World Wide Web being public, it allowed different countries and states to collect information. You know, data became stronger and more reliable, and more people had to be held accountable because there's eyes on you now. Okay, so where you're able to waltz really under the radar, with the internet coming out and being as big as it is now and as it was, there's no excuse. So, shout out to Wikipedia too, because they had an exhaustive list back from the 80s. All right, the HRC, because they're human rights, they can't help everybody. You know what I'm saying? But when you have these statistics that I'm gonna show you, and nobody's doing nothing about it, I'm telling you, man, in 2014, when Laverne Cox came out, spikes of transgender murders, and at any rate, so, and I also noticed too that there's a lot around Christmas or holidays, New Year's, that these brutal things just happen. So, December 21st, 1988, Venus Extravaganza. She was a transgender woman of color. She was murdered 4 days before Christmas. Y'all can read that. Shoved under a hotel bed, man. Strangled to death. Now, Venus was a part of the house and barroom scene. It's important, man. So, all right. Pause real quick. Gather my composure, because it's sad. Alright. So, in 1991, there was a Hispanic transgender woman. Her name was Sonia. Well, y'all can read that real quick. Hold on, let me breathe real quick, because it's just disgusting and sad. All right. So, in 91, Sonia Zafata, she was a Hispanic transgender woman. This wasn't in the States. It was in like Barcelona. But she was working in a theater, okay? And doing theater in 91, okay? So what that lets me know is that transgender women have been in those same spaces that occupy the ballroom that drag queens use. But yeah, she was actually sleeping with one of her friends, and she got beat up. Her friend got beat up by 6 neo-Nazis, and they beat her to death. How long does that take to beat somebody to death? And my man bashed on them like that, but it's a lot of these men who, you know, they got this thing, you know, called trans rage and stuff like that or whatever, but it's important for men to check other men. And at any point, you know, a person like RuPaul, because I'm 36, I'll be 37 in November, but our parents, they all know RuPaul. You feel me? He was our Caitlyn Jenner. You feel me? And but at never, not one time did RuPaul ever identify, you know, as a transgender. He's always been a man. And when these murders and shit happen and stuff happen, you gotta check your men. You have to. But if you don't, and you know, this kind of violence perpetuates itself over and over and over and over again. And most times it's because of what they see on TV. You know, I'm sure transgender women just want to live. You know, they want to have a good time. They want to go out. They want to be able to date without having to fear for your life. And that's why the Vern Cox silence is deafening. Because you got to do the work. So, they called her a killer, but this actually woke, it brought the Hispanic LGBT community together, right? They said, hey, that's messed up. She was minding her own business, doing her own thing, you know, and they killed her. So they created a memorial in her honor. They got her killers, you know. And so, yeah. All right, that's 1991. So, 1993. Now, I brought this case up because this is not a transgender woman. This is a woman that was born a woman, but is a transgender man, right? A trans man. You know, a white trans man. But she was a girl, but she wanted to be a boy. but she ended up getting raped and getting, I think they shot her to death. But in 1993, okay, now mind you, there were already we already had a transgender murder, Venus, in the 80s, but she was Hispanic. So I don't know where the outrage was. But white America found a way to bring Brandon Teena's story to Hollywood. All right. Got a movie. They humanized him. They said, well, this could be any of our children. And Hollywood stepped up. What is that girl's name? I got their names in there somewhere, but they're really famous white actors. I know her name is Chloe, and not Selma or something like that. I don't know, but Hollywood stepped up. She got raped and murdered on New Year's Eve. He got raped and murdered on New Year's Eve, and they employed the full force. And once you put a movie to something, the movie it stands and it'll be able to be seen throughout everywhere. So I put that in there because for the Americans that hadn't even heard of transgender women, they heard of a trans man and he got beat. The movie's called Boys Don't Cry, by the way. So, yep. All right. Now, these are the collages. Man, this is just from 1 year, and I want to say it's 2015. All the black and the Hispanic women whose lives were taken, including Malaysia Booker, who was shot to death this weekend. If you have a platform, you have to use it. You cannot stay silent. And if you stay silent, then you become complicit. Everybody wants to live and find love. That'd be great, right? But if you were blessed with the responsibility of being put in a position to be a leader and to be chose, you have to do it. And if you don't, you have to get out the way. You gotta move. You have to move because it's too important for you to keep reaping the benefits and not doing nothing but sending a tweet. No, this is this is sad and it pisses me off and we have to do better. What are y'all doing? What are y'all doing? There are so many undercover gay people in Hollywood. But the thing about it is, you know, maybe that's why they call him a token, because maybe the token can be controlled. I don't know. I know I wouldn't be the token. But maybe that's why. But from my perspective and my position, it's disgusting for anybody who claims to be a transgender and to be silent. What's even more disgusting is the fact that RuPaul done rode that line for so long, and then when he answered it, and then when the trans community was up in a roar like, well, what do you mean you can't be the gatekeeper on Drag Queens? You know? And then he doubled down and, you know, talked some more stuff. But that's the man the unchecked ego, the unchecked privilege. This man is a multi-millionaire. He got bank. And when that money gets threatened, then he wanted to walk back and say, hey, and I don't even know if he writes his own tweets. I really don't know. But I know he backed and gave a half stated, oh, let me learn from you. No, it's that money. It's that threat of you being seen for who you are. You're not doing nothing. You haven't been doing nothing. And people need to understand, these people they telling you who they are. They are showing you exactly what they stand for. And so, y'all got to go. Because you're not doing nothing. And people keep dying. And, when you threaten their money, that is the only reason why he even put that tweet out there. But I promise you, if you look up anything, if you look up narcissistic personality disorder, he had at least 6 of them, but 9, even though he was only supposed to have 5 with the criteria. But and in the Laverne Cox case, if you don't have the stamina and if you don't have the wherewithal to continue to stand, as hard as when she came out and she wanted to tell her story, about getting beat up on the bus, but she didn't really get beat up because everybody was watching her, the bus driver and all. Like, again, I'm not minimizing your pain or minimizing your story, but you have to do something. Y'all got to do something. And all these black people in the ball culture, y'all taking their spots. Y'all in their space and y'all in their way. Because I can guarantee you, if any one of them had half the chance, half the platform, this would not be happening. It just wouldn't. Because they understand how it is to be really marginalized. Man. If you just give them half of the platform, they'll do the work. But y'all gotta go. Because y'all ain't doing shit. Y'all ain't doing nothing. Y'all just letting people die. Continuously. Die. Alright. So, I couldn't really... I'm not going to go over all of this because it's just ridiculously sad. It's too emotional. But I'm going to start with a little bit. So, for the people who won't even go to the website to click on it to find the statistics, straight off the I got these from Wiki and from the HRC website because Wiki goes back further. I looked at Uniform Crime Report and under hate crimes, but when there's not enough pressure being applied, these law enforcement officers are not going to pursue hate crime charges because that's a lot more work you have to prove, and essentially certain people are not going to help people who don't help themselves, unfortunately. But they really gotta go though. But. So I wanted to bring out the Amanda Milan case because Sylvia Rivera, she's a transgender woman activist in New York. She's running for office, okay? She gonna get the work done, So y'all should vote for her. But the point is, the world is pretty backwards. But Amanda Milan, she was a trans, murdered. And this lady, Sylvia Rivera, she stood up with her sister, okay? And she made sure that, her killers got put up on charges and dealt with. Which is how I believe everyone should be, especially the transgender women of color. And not. So, Lonnie Kai, her murder remains unsolved. Silent, nobody talked about it, nobody advocated for her. You got Gwen Araujo in 2002, strangled by acquaintances and former sexual partners. And her case is messed up because it's 2002. She ain't never coming back. Never. But her killer got parole last year. 2003. Now, all of these murders are the ones that I just reported. There are even more that go unreported each day, every day. Naria Johnson, African American, trans woman, was murdered in Indianapolis by Paul Moore, a male who was initially sexually attracted to her and then discovered she was transgender, and, well, he killed her. In 2008, we got Letitia Teach Green. She was shot and killed November 14th, 2008, outside of a house party. They convicted Dwight Lee in Syracuse, New York, and I'm pretty sure it was because of the work that Sylvia put in. But, yeah, got a hate crime against him. 2010, Victoria Carmen White was a black trans woman, murdered. Her murderer was brought to trial for her death, but he got acquitted. Blamed another man for the murder. The only motive suggested was transphobic violence. The words, "You a dude?" was heard by White's friends who were in an adjacent room shortly before he killed her. Now there's hundreds and hundreds. But I want to we'll go briefly. 2011, Markel Tai, 25-year-old trans woman, black. Unknown individual just shot her in the head, dragged her behind the car like she wasn't nothing. D.D. Pearson, Christmas Eve, 2011. Kenyan confessed to a murder. He told police that he paid Pearson for sex, but he found out that she was transgender. He got angry and he killed her. Treasure, 19-year-old black woman. Dismembered. Dismembered means they cut off her body parts. And then they burned them. They burned her. Heather was killed after a police officer revealed her as an informant to a suspect. Toxic male masculinity. I'm not a man basher. I'm not. Y'all see this shit? We got more murders. 47-year-old black trans woman beaten to death. Leonie stabbed to death. Hispanic. Coco. Shot. Tyrell. Paige. Shot her in the face in Chicago. Brandy. Shot to death in Oakland. Lorena. Puerto Rican trans woman. Tracy. Shot. Tiffany. Dead from multiple stab wounds. Murder still unsolved. Deja shot. Kendall shot. Kid Cruz shot. January, Marie Lupalo was stabbed to death. Now, up to now, there's about maybe six to 50. No, not 50. About 6 to 10 that was initially being recorded. 2012, we got 2013. But around here is where it starts getting intentional, so to speak. Meaning that there's just no regard. You know, sort of like when after slavery got done and they enacted those Jim Crow laws, you know, you could stop any black man for whatever you wanted to. Every black person didn't have to be a black man, and you know, just ask them anything you wanted to ask them, just because they were black. Yeah, what's going on right now with transgender women of color just being murdered? They want to pay for it. Oh, I didn't know she was a trans. You get caught. Oh, I didn't know she was a trans. And then who gonna check you? Goes down more. It's disgusting, y'all. All right, 2014, and another thing that I noticed with these murders is that by the year, they get more brutal. They get more brutal by the year. All of that, man. Found in a garbage bin. Burned her ass post-mortem. What that means is she was already dead. They burned her body, threw her behind a trash can like she wasn't nothing. A piece of trash. Alejandra Leos, Latino. They got her suspect, later charged with first-degree murder. Ayanna Parker, murder, L.A., robbery gone wrong. Yeah, okay. Ashley, dead with a gunshot wound. Brianna, dead in her car. Again, I'm not gonna go through all of these because my heart can't take it. It's a lot. It's a lot. Lots of murder. But 2014, 2015 is when the conversation in America changed, right? Laverne Cox came on the scene as Orange New Black, and she was, hey, I'm a transgender woman. Catapulted. That next year, Caitlyn Jenner came out and you said you better not call me by any male pronouns. But the conversation changed, and the problem with that is well, there's no problem with that, but you can't really touch somebody like Caitlyn Jenner because of all the work that she's done previously, you know. But again, you have a platform, and just like you told everybody and you explained to them and offered new vocabulary in America about transgender women. You can do the same for your sisters. You can do the same for your sisters. But so now around this time, 2015, there's absolutely no excuse for murders to continuously being happening. Like, see, with that kind of platform, all you have to do is introduce legislation to make that is a straight hate crime, right? And because you've lived a life, you understand and you know what all that entails. And your information is valuable and they can use that because, I mean, again, law enforcement, most times they want to help, right? Sometimes you have toxic masculinity cops, most of them infections with PTSD. But, you know, detectives want to get the job done. And they don't want these people out here continuously to do this stuff. Because if you've gotten to the point of murder, right, I'm to believe you've raped and beaten way more times than you've been caught for. It just makes sense. There's no other way around that. But now, so in 2015, again, up till then, I didn't see anything about RuPaul asserting his masculinity and saying being drag is not the same as trans. You lose money if you do that. It's not good for business. And people will take your money and don't give no cares about you. And what a malignant narcissist does, and narcissism period in general, you know, is they need you to worship their fake self-image. And you have to understand these people come from a background of theater. They act all day long. It's nothing to them. It's nothing. And so, what's a few words if I'm going to keep a couple $100 million and get my show renewed, and then have my homeboy Billy Porter come up here and ride this same wave? Y'all got to bounce. Y'all can't do that. Laverne Cox, if you don't step up, you got to bounce. Caitlyn Jenner, it's hard for me to say anything bad about that because she had a terminology for what needed to happen. And she moved the conversation forward light years. And she had a little show. She continued being open. Whereas Laverne Cox had this show, the T Word, something like that. And I watched that last night, and you could just tell she couldn't relate. You couldn't relate. If the worst thing that you had was somebody trying to jump you from band, but you ran home real fast because, you know, the bus driver was watching you, but you got people getting raped and murdered and kicked out their house. You know what I'm saying? And you have mean-ass moms, like on the show, and they intentionally not calling you by your pronouns because they know that messes with you. Because they don't care. Like, their stories are not the same. Right? And if you can't connect and it's not authentic, you can't feel it, so you can't force it. So it probably means you don't need to be there. You see what I'm saying? If you don't need to be there. You just need to bounce. Let somebody else from the blog culture come up there. I saw this one guy on the TED Talk. He did an excellent job. I'll share that later though. But he did an excellent job in breaking down how, of course, you know, well, I don't know if you don't know, but, you know, Vogue and all that kind of stuff, that started with them, with black people. You know, voguing, man, and for so long, the actual marginalized people have been just held down. And why this RuPaul gets to, this man, okay, who identifies as a man, who gets to just take all their money. Like, I don't see how people can see this. This man is evil. He does not care about transgender. He don't care about nothing. He cares about himself and his pockets, right? And barely even gave in, if you ask me. Well, that's just my opinion. But Yep. Goes on. Look, and then I put on about this white one. Bree, stabbed to death by her father. Okay? Day before Valentine's Day. What's up with these holidays? Is something that's... Bree was a 22-year-old living with her father at the time. Her father called 911 after the stabbing, claiming it was the cult that broke in and stabbed Bree. The cult he referred to is a local trans support group. You cannot do things... We can't have a million separate entities. Like, a million separate organizations. You need a platform. I mean, to me, it's just that simple. It is. More murders, all in the same year, 2015. We ain't even changed the year yet. 2015. 2016. They had this broken down because there was just so freaking many of them. You know, in Mexico, Monica Rivera, she was a trans woman and a sex worker, stabbed to death. Okay. Paulette Gonzalez, beauty queen, burned beyond recognition. I need y'all to understand, to enact that type of violence on another human being is just... It's disgusting, it's despicable. And I'm telling you now, these men that are shooting, burning, dismembering, didn't just start that way. They started by raping. They started by raping, beating, and, you know, it's sort of like, you know, when I was doing security, you know, I used to work in a bank sometimes, and, well, I mean, I didn't work there, but, you know, I was supervising, and when my troops wouldn't show up, I would come, you know, fill in until, you know, replacement came in or whatever. But, you know, you would hear the bank tellers talk about times when they got robbed. And I'm just like, wait a minute, you got robbed, you still here? Like, I would be gone. But, you know, it's one of those that just comes along with the jobs sort of things. And unfortunately, when you have brutal murders and things like this, most sex workers will tell you, you know, that's why they have some street smarts. Or I've been raped before, or I've been beaten before, and he almost got me that one time, and, you know, things of that nature. It becomes second nature. And so when they finally work up the rage or the courage, whatever, to pull the trigger, it's not because they didn't know. Right? Because then why are you armed? Like, think about that. Okay. And, I mean, again, 2016, this is for the Hispanics, Mexico. 43-year-old Latina woman from North Austin, Texas, murdered a couple years ago. The man demanded entry to her home, claiming he'd forgotten his jacket. Right?